I am excited to teach you about my all-time favorite power punctuation mark, the dash, which is used constantly by professional writers of all kinds. I almost dare you to find a couple pages of professional writing anywhere for anything, including textbooks, where the professional author, is not using dashes, and yet students often don't know that they even exist, even though you're reading them every day in every class that you take, every time you read something on the web, anywhere else. In fact, students often don't even understand the difference between a dash and a hyphen, and I know it sounds silly, but just as in your math classes, these symbols mean something, and they have completely different functions. A hyphen separates or connects words, such as part-time or ex-military. It's a tiny little short mark like that. The dash is used to separate whole and connect whole sentences and phrases, not just little words. And therefore, it's a much longer mark. It's like 2 or 3 times longer than a hyphen, and you can also type it using 2 hyphens. And again, I know it sounds silly, but many of you don't even see these dashes when you're reading them, and it's such a fundamental part of becoming an advanced writer. Nobody taught me about dashes until I was in grad school, and it honestly transformed my writing. I was already a very good writer. That's how I got into grad school, but I became a professional writer in part because somebody showed me this wonderful mark. There's 3 different ways to use dashes. I love the way that I teach these, so please try to pay attention to this. Here is what we're going to work with, which is me teasing myself. Scott's bald head is beautiful is our base sentence, and what we're going to do is modify that sentence in 3 different ways using dashes. The first way to modify the sentence, the most common by far way to use a dash, is to throw it in at the end of a complete sentence. And end of a complete sentence is completely important. If you're not already working with a complete sentence, then this dash trick won't work. But look how many different fun tricks we can do with this sentence. Scott's bald head is beautiful. Not. Scott's bald head is beautiful, dash, and majestic. Scott's bald head is beautiful. But what is beauty? Scott's bald head is beautiful. Age and wisdom are the truest form of beauty. So no matter if you're being philosophical or funny or sarcastic or whatever you may be, the dash is there for you. And essentially you can throw in anything from one word to an entire question to an entire what could be a standalone sentence phrase here. All the way, all of those are possible as long as you have a complete sentence on this side. So powerful, so amazing, that's one reason you see it everywhere. In a middle dash formation, we are interrupting the original sentence. So if our original sentence is Scott's bald head is beautiful, we're using a pair of dashes to interrupt that sentence. Scott's bald and slightly misshapen head is beautiful. Scott's bald but egregiously shiny head is beautiful. The cockapos are endangered or not by their small numbers and weird sex life. And by the way, that's a reference to a book that I didn't assign this quarter, so don't worry. Cockapos are birds, and it's okay. This is college. Scott's bald and slightly misshapen head is beautiful. You can do this in other ways. I guess this is to say you don't have to use dashes. You could just write it out like that. You could write it out with commas. Scott's bald, comma, and slightly misshapen head is beautiful. Scott's bald, parentheses, and slightly misshapen head is beautiful. So why would you want to do it this way? Scott's bald and slightly misshapen head is beautiful. I hope what you hear in my voice, there's an old rule. Dashes shout. That adds extra emphasis. It like spotlights whatever comes inside of it or after it. Whereas parentheses, they tend to whisper. And of course, you can emphasize something by whispering. But that's another lesson of power punctuation for another day. The point is, you don't have to use dashes. A lot of you are like salt and pepper cooks, as far as I'm concerned. Like you're in college, you can cook, you can cook something very basic, but the only spices on your rack are salt and pepper, and it gets a little boring. I mean, nothing wrong with salt and pepper, but what about paprika? What about chilies? What about saffron? What about all those wonderful herbs that you can throw into any dish? Real cooks use these other spices sparingly, and real writers use things like dashes all the time. So you can add a dash of spice or a spice of dash to your writing at any time. All right. If you're cringing over all my puns, let's move on. The beginning dash is the one that's used very seldom, so I got to say you don't see this very often, although not never. It's almost always used in an introductory paragraph or a position rather like that, because it's a way to catch people's attention with something that sounds really weird. And you have to follow my exact principles to do this. So here's Scott's bald head is beautiful. Always, always, always work with a complete sentence. And what you do with a beginning dash is you throw a random sounding list in front of it. Majestic, shiny, inspiring, egotistical, confused. Scott's bald head is beautiful. Here's another one about the weird bird that you're not reading about this year. Confused, flightless, pudgy, sweet-smelling, and prone to mating with biologists' heads. These are some of the characteristics of the tragically endangered cockapos. So, are you ready to start cooking with something other than salt and pepper? Are you ready to start spicing up your sentences? If so, please start throwing dashes in there. But please also make sure that you're always building on the base of a complete sentence. And please be very careful to follow my formulas. It's a little like this is a good recipe for cooks. I'll get you to the next level as a chef, but you need to follow my ingredients list and you need to do it in the order described. Eventually, you can have fun inventing your own way to describe dashes, but I know that this one works, and I can't wait to see some dashes in your sentences. I also dare you to find a page of published writing that doesn't have dashes in it already. Go look. I mean it. Go look. You'll see it there. Okay.